Hello and welcome to Alive and Composing, the wonderful world of innova with today's guest, Huang Ruo.
Hello.
Would
Phil.
you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Huang Ruo.
Is there a tone that I got wrong? And if so, I apologize.
I think it need to be more dramatic instead of because the Chinese language has different tunes, right? So Huang is the second tune, Ruo is the fourth tone. So it's like a hot, Huang Ruo.
And the word dramatic seems to sum up your entire life at this point, right?
True.
And it all originates from your name. What does that translate as?
Huang actually means yellow, and is my last name. I'm from the village of Hainan Island, where we have actually two or three villages of people all have the same last name. We even have a family worship place, like a temple with all the ancestors' name listed, and has a village book with everyone's name listed. So Huang is my family name from Hainan Island, and Ruo is my first name, which means as if or as like. So it's kind of like a question, unfinished sentence or unfinished journey. So I used to not like it, but more and more I like the name because it make me always moving, always wandering, always curious. So not that defined, but always on the changing. So
You're always a reading or a work in progress.
that's right. Yeah.
And what's your first and earliest sound memory?
Well, there are many years ago now. I used to be just pop up like that, but I should say the very first memory, because my father is also a composer, so in my household, music is everywhere. Not only my father who would hum whatever he's writing, but my mom actually, although she's a doctor, but she sings a lot. So she would always, sings for me this or that. Vaguely, I think that is my first memory of sound or music. But my first real memory that really impacted me a lot was actually a village ghost wedding in Hainan Island, and for that wedding was my grandma, who was actually sick for several weeks, and no doctor knows what happened to her, and she ends up went to a fortune teller, who told her, you were sick because you have two deceased sons. So my father actually has two brothers who died very young, and they already passed the age of getting married, because in China people got married very early. So they try to give you signal to arrange a wedding for them to get wives. So my grandma invited a group of Taoists came to perform this ritual ceremony. I was very young, and then so I did not know too much, but I just remember this memory of singing and chanting, and also village musicians playing in front of our house for hours, and so to me that was very haunting, but also feels just make a big impact in my life as well. Yeah.
Was it at that moment maybe you thought you would be a composer or a musician, or that would be a big
I-
part of your life?
I just thought the power and it's such a powerful moment, and to me it made me feel, oh, music is not just entertainment or just sounds good, but actually it has more depth and more magic, more interesting thing in that than normally what I will hear. So it does make me want to know more about what music is about, and later on I also start singing, not trend, but singing high, singing low. Then I start thinking, actually, maybe that also credit to the kind of singing I heard, and yeah.
And what might you have been if you didn't turn out to be a composer?
Well, it's hard to really define one thing and one thing only. I do love architecture, so I would love to be an architect, but also I love film. There were once upon a time I was thinking, oh, it would be great to be either a cameraman or a film director. So something related to art. I feel that's where my passion and strength is. So.
Do you get a sense that some of those things are actually in your operatic and theatrical works already? Architecture, for instance, and structure and imagery.
That's actually that's true, and everything is connected. And what's very interesting is when I was teaching my students, I would sometimes tell them, imagine you are the film director and writing the piece. Imagine you're looking at this object from far away and then getting closer, or from close to far. So to me, I always apply different languages into describing music and thinking about music. And with architecture, I developed this technical dimensionalism. So it has everything to do with dimensions and object, but in this case it's dimensionalism in music and in sound. So it's like a sound landscape or sound architecture. So it's not too far away from what I would do if I'm not a composer.
What did you learn from your teachers? Are there some words of wisdom that you'd like to pass on to your students?
I'm fortunate. I've been fortunate to have some great teachers in my life, and my first mentor and teacher in China, Professor Deng Erbo, who has taught me a great deal. I studied with him when I was 12 to 18 in Shanghai. We never used any textbook, and he was very against to using any form of a regular textbook to teach young kids like our age. So he would use life examples to teach us. And I remember one lesson was about a counterpoint, and he said, "What is counterpoint?" And he pointed at the street. He said, "You see, when car comes, the people stopped. And when car stops, people cross the street. So counterpoint in a way is come and go and fill in the spaces between different currents, but also you don't want to run into each other. You try to avoid and complete with each other." So for us, we were writing piano pieces then, so it was very easy to digest and understand, that is what it means, although we don't really know the species counterpoint or things like that. So we were just writing from natural instance and from how we feel, and that really benefited me a lot. And when I taught my students now, I also give them very vivid examples from life. I often quoted how to make food, because I love food. I'm from Canton. I'm making food, eating food. So I always use that to apply to my students, and sometimes young students come in and using every extended techniques you can imagine in the world, and to put a lot of makeup on the face, on the piece, So I would tell them, I say, look, imagine you are in a ingredient store to buy all kinds of pepper, Italian, rosemary, all kinds of things. And yes, you could get everything you want, but if you put everything into one dish, doesn't make a great dish. Maybe make a very bad dish. You only apply to what you need and necessary, and for a good reason. So and they got it. Yeah.
And how did you get to the United States, and what first surprised and shocked you about this place?
What's very interesting is before I came to US, for us, our imagination or what we heard about US is, it's a dangerous place. There was gun, there was drug, there was this or that. But I came when I was 18. I went to Oberlin College, Conservatory of Music, to start my undergrad. But actually, before that, I was enrolled in the UCLA language program to study English. So being in Los Angeles for 9 months as my first kick-off of my journey here, it was not easy. It's kind of like a wild, wild west for me. You know, I did not know how to drive. I took the bus everywhere, and taking public transportation in LA was a nightmare. The bus come every 30 minutes if you're lucky, and most of the time they're not on time. So I don't know. It's just a very large city, and I have to survive somehow, but while maintaining my study in English. And but to me, this country is truly beautiful in every sense. People are very friendly. I felt welcomed and accepted when I first came, and I make my home here ever since. So to me, it's a place I could really embrace my creativity, and to develop, and to observe, and to learn, and also to give. So yeah, it's fortune for me to make my journey here.
There's been a precedent of Chinese composers and artists who come to the United States with a conscious goal of making East and West meet. Is that something that is intentional for your work, or does it just happen anyway?
You know what's very interesting is when I first studied as first year at Oberlin, sometimes people would ask me, do you write like Zhou Long or Chen Yi? So who are of course great composers. I would call them teachers. And what's very interesting is that actually in a way give me some kind of pressure, and also set my standard high. I need to write as who I am, because every composer, China is very large, and every composer from different place, they have their own voice, and it is a little bit too genetic to say every American composer writes like John Cage or writes like Philip Glass, So yeah, to me, that's a very interesting question when I was asked when I was that young, but I never really look back or really think too much. I just very happy to be at Oberlin. I spend a lot of time in the library to listen to a lot of great music, to catch up with what I missed, because in China we have very limited resource. So I learned a great deal from many great masters, but always that question always in my mind is who I am and what do I want to do. Even nowadays, I still speak English with my own accent, and I think it's important not to lose your own accent. So it was not intentionally to bring anything together, because I never think that way. I just feel every composer, no matter who you are, where you are, when you are, you always have your own unique journey, and you just need to be truthful to who you are, and embrace what is given to you. We could live a hard life, we could live a good life, it doesn't matter. Every day there's something could be learned from, and your music is a reflection of your life experience. I always tell people, if John Cage never was not born or live in US, and he was born or live in Asia or in Europe, he would never be John Cage. So and I believe that is a reason for everything to happen. So in this case, I'm very happy of how I think about music and how I write about music. It is for other people to define or to reflect or to understand what I'm writing, and I hope people would not think of my music as here is East, here is West, but it's more naturally integration of whatever elements is in there.
Are there aspects to the business or the professional side of being a composer? I know your star is in the ascendant, and it must be very difficult to manage all of these different aspects of being in Amsterdam and writing operas and traveling the world and maintaining a family. Are there things that are exciting or daunting, or you wish you didn't have to deal with?
What's very interesting is the older I get, the more I feel life is short. So, I try to find every minute I can to write music. Although there are more things happening, I turn down many trips, which I'm invited to take. Sometimes I just focus on the projects that really interest me the most and could really bring out the best of me. So there are choices one can make no matter where you are and who you are, and we just need to keep very clear mind of what we want to do. And about family, I'm someone who loves to have family, and now I have a 2.5-year-old boy running around. Without doubt, that took a lot of energy and a lot of time from my writing, but that is also a part of life, and I choose to to have a family. So in this case, it's a sacrifice I'm very willing and happy to also make. And also, as what I say, that's part of my journey, right? So having this little boy also bring me different inspiration, as different composer will have inspiration from friends or family, loved ones. That is just who we are and who I am. So, yeah.
Talking about progeny, you have an innova album called Red Rain. Can you talk a little bit about what's on that and how it came to be?
Yeah. So this is something I'm very excited about. It's my most recent portrait CD of an entire album of my solo works. In this case, it's called Red Rain. The title is taken from a piano solo piece I wrote in 2011 called Red Rain for Italian pianist called Emanuele Acciuli, who have been a dear friend of mine, and I wrote this piece for him. And later on, I also recently wrote a piano concerto for him also called Unscrolled. So for Red Rain, Emanuele contacted me back then to start a project he had in mind to commission several American composers to choose Native American painters' work they like and to be inspired and to create a piece. So in my case, I chose Joanne Quittu Smith, who is a wonderful Native American painter, live in New Mexico. So I was particularly drawn to this painting. It's not called Red Rain. I called it Red Rain because in the painting it has a dripping of red color, almost like you could imagine them as blood dripping down on a Confederate soldier who is either sleeping or laying on the floor. And then you also have each drop of blood has a Native American symbol. One is arrow, one is a man with a costume, this or that. So to me, that was quite interesting. So, and then later on, when I start writing the piece, the narrative of what I see becomes irrelevant. So I just have this image, this title in my mind. It's about Red Rain. I mean, I just imagine what the world would be if suddenly the sky dripping down red rain, and what does that mean to us? So to me, it's an imagination, just about what that day or what that world will be. So that's one piece, and also on the album there's Tree Without Wind, which I wrote also as a piano solo piece, and with that piece, it was commissioned by a concert artist guild for Korean American pianist So-Young Lee, and is inspired by a Buddhism story actually, and it's called Tree Without Wind because there was one day the sixth Grand Master of Buddhism, Zen Chan Buddhism in China. He's giving a talk outdoor, and there was a tree making a lot of noise in the yard, and every monks were looking at the tree instead of listening to him. So he stopped the preaching. He said, "What is moving?" And one person say, "Oh, the tree is moving." He said, "No." And then one person say, "Oh, the wind is moving." He said, "No." He said, "What is moving is your attention and your mind. If you are focused and not being moved, nothing is moving around you." I always took their metaphors to living in New York, although it's noisy, although a lot of people, a lot of traffic, but as long as we stay focused and we stay calm, and nothing is relevant. So that piece has both meditative moments and also anxiety moments, and it's the interplaying of these two. To me, it's like a practice or a meditation, and about who is overcoming whom. So in that case, that piece is also on the album, and there's a piece called Four Fragments. Is for solo cello. In that piece, actually, I took the inspiration from the Norwegian painter Munch, and I went to see his exhibition at MoMA. That was years ago, and I love what he, what he painted. But also there was one line he said really strikes me very deeply. He said, "I don't paint what I see, I paint what I saw." So that to me, as an expressionist painter, his painting is unique in his own way, and not only just painting what he sees, but also this memory, this internal expression of the object really shown in the painting itself. So I was inspired by that sentence, and then I came up with my own sentences. For this piece, I don't write what I hear, I write what I heard. So, so 4 fragments from different stage of my journey of my life. They were in this solo cello piece.
Well, we know that everything in your life is a work in progress, and so we'll pause it here and say thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you, Phil. I really appreciate for you to talk to me, and also looking forward to this new album to come out on Innova record.